Okay, so we're just going around the circle, name pronouns, and the most inspiring moment of the day.
You wanna go?
Is it my turn already?
Yeah, it's your turn. Let's do
Okay,
it.
hi everyone, I'm Raina, she, her pronouns, and most inspiring moment of the day. I think some of the conversations that we had in the last session, it was, I think it was, gosh, I'm trying to remember his name, I want to say it's Nick, but speaking about leadership and working with Vito and Obama, and it's just like the realizing how close we are connected to everyone else in this area.
I'm Nikhil, Sabhoo, he, him, his, and I think mainly my day has been a travel day, but I would have to say we had a little sound check in between. I have to say hearing Rizwan play live was very inspiring, and just to kind of open up his case, and he had all these wonderful things. It felt like it felt like an entire apartment in a case, but just to kind of hear him play was very inspiring to me. Yeah.
Hi everyone, my name is Srishti. My pronouns are she, her, and one thing that inspired me today is last session, one of the great panelists talked about how because of the model minority myth, a lot of South Asians, especially people who are very young and Gen Z, feel the pressure to be perfect all the time. But they really talked about how oftentimes we can eradicate that myth and kind of put out the narrative that it's okay to make mistakes, right? Like, you're not going to be the last one, and there's a lot of support system out there for you.
Love that.
Hi everyone, my name is Ashika, she, hers, the program and events manager at Impact, and I feel like the entire day has been inspiring. Just seeing so many South Asian faces coming together and building community with each other.
Hi, I'm Nadia, you, she, her pronouns. I think, as you said, the whole day has just been amazing, and just learning how all these people are using their leadership and stuff for advocacy.
Hi, I'm Nandini, she, her, and hearing Swati Sharma, who is the editor-in-chief at Vox, was very inspiring just a few minutes ago, and hearing about her journey in journalism.
Hi, I'm Nessa, I use she, her pronouns, and one thing that inspired me today was seeing Mega around all her South Asian inspired outfits.
Hi, I'm Shreya, I use she, her pronouns, and I got to meet she's the founder of Brown Girl magazine, Davina, so I got to meet her.
I'm Shika, I use she, her pronouns, and the most inspiring thing I've seen today was in the repro justice panel, and there were two people there who were talking about their work in abortion care and reproductive justice, and one is an abortion doula, and one is a pediatric gynecologist, which are two career paths I'd never really even heard of, so talking about abortion in our community was very inspiring.
Sweet.
I'm Rizwan, he, him pronouns. I think meeting you two in person first. I did on Zoom a few days ago, so I was just oh my gosh, in person. But
yeah, got it. Yeah, it is.
We got artists in the house. So
yeah.
We were talking about how we've seen you at every single
I've been there.
But also I just meet again the community and meeting people. I ended up meeting someone from high school that I did science fair with, and someone that I did that I was in the collegiate dance circuit with back in undergrad. And the same thing of just wanting to make a difference all brought us here. So I just thought that was really
Sweet.
Hi, my name is Mara. I go by she, her pronouns, and I spent most of my day at the check-in table. But there's been so much hard work and so much passion that has gone into this event for the past several months. So that's just been really powerful and thing to see, and see everything come together is really amazing.
Hi everyone, I'm Simi Shah, she, her, hers. I don't know, this is just one of my favorite events of the year. It's only my second time attending, but I get to reunite with friends like Ari, and I think the best part is the side conversations that sometimes happen between sessions, and they just tend to be so substantive. People want to have a follow-up conversation about an issue that we just talked about in a panel, or just something super top of mind. I just met a psychiatrist who's about to go on fellowship in Nepal to mental health. I just think that's really inspiring because there's nothing that can quite mimic or mirror those organic conversations a wonderful day.
Hi everyone, I'm Hani. I go by she, her, hers. And it's my first time at this event, even though I'm local to DC, and so it's been really just inspiring all day seeing so many South Asian faces come out for this event. My hometown.
Yeah.
Hi, my name is Shreyas. I use he, him, his. I think an inspiring thing from this morning, the LGBTQ breaking the silence. There was a father who spoke about, coming, both of his children are part of the LGBTQ community, and he kind of accounted his, the process of learning about something that he was uncomfortable with and didn't really understand, and then his journey. It was very inspiring.
Hi, I'm Ashani. I use she, her pronouns. And something that really inspired me today was just hearing in the last panel I went to about how far the South Asian community has come and how there are TV shows like Never Have I Ever that can touch like little children and like people my age and like wedding season. One of my favorite movies of all time right now. Literally on my letterbox. Yeah. I love it so much, and just seeing that representation has just moved our community so far.
Okay.
Ditto to your movie. I've seen it twice.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Ari Afsar, she, her, hers, and the most inspiring thing, also travel day, but we walked in for our sound check and the elevator doors open and there were just so many Desi people and we both were like,
yeah.
this is amazing.
Heck yeah.
And then we both have kind of similar resumes, so we're just gonna like go quickly over resumes so you know who we are.
We know who you are.
Okay, well, okay, we also did, so I did Hamilton. I originally Chicago production of Hamilton as Eliza. I was in wedding season. My family is Muslim, so I always say like I got like the big Hindu wedding that I'll never get to have on screen. And then I'm a multi-hyphen, so as a performer, those are two cool things that I got to do. I also am a composer, which you'll be all participating in the composition that I wrote later. I wrote for Lyle Lyle Crocodile, that Shawn Mendes sang, and wrote this musical called Jeanette that also Nikhil was in. Yeah. So once you find your people, once you're definitely find your Desi community, you keep working with them.
Truly, and that's been since the beginning.
Yeah.
I sort of did the original Broadway cast of Mean Girls, and then I joined Hamilton for a small stint, and then after the pandemic, which we'll talk a little bit about, but then I moved to Dear Evan Hansen on tour, and now I'm back in the city. But truly, I think as we're continuing to be in the industry, I think that we continue to find ourselves in spaces and in places where being just a performer isn't enough. And if you know Ari, it is not enough for her right now. And she has inspired me to be that way. And naturally, being on stage, we kind of have that place where we're like, no, we say more than just what we're doing, and we want to. So that has been a wonderful journey as well.
I'm just gonna sit next to you.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna ask a few words, even though we're in a circle, I'm like paneling each other. Nikhil, what was the first time when you connected the dots between art and activism?
So I think it was probably when I was in Dear Evan Hansen afterwards, post-pandemic, and I think it was the switch between going from Hamilton to Dear Evan Hansen, and being in that show, I was with my 3 white family members and me, and I think that also honed me into who I was as Connor Murphy in this role, and then
the first South Asian to play Connor Murphy.
Yes. Yeah. And then also I probably will say that during the show, every single night there was a small irk in my stomach. Even though it's a pretty tragic show and we end up in a nice place, but the lights would come up and it would be backlit, so we would see the entire audience for the last number of the show. and I found myself constantly scanning the audience, and I kept on scanning the audience to see if there was anyone that was there that looked like me, but it was a sea of white people that are at these shows, and I was like, I need to do something about this, even if it's for one person. So I started a ticket initiative, a BIPOC ticket initiative, where I would give away 2 tickets every single week in every single city. And with that, because of the show, then I pair it with a mental health packet that I joined with a nonprofit. So, but within there, at Dear Evan Hansen was when things started to kind of connect of like, ooh, there's something a lot bigger that I need to kind of go forward with. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the moment for me of connecting the dots, I opened Hamilton in Chicago in November of 2016, so a month before Thou Shall Not Be Named got elected. And October, I opened in October, and you know, being in that show during that time, talking about our founding fathers, our white founding fathers 8 times a week with a POC cast was like very interesting. And it completely like shifted something in me. And I started to question who our foremothers are. And I am a millennial, and so as millennials do, I just Google searched who was the first woman elected into federal office. I found out it was Jeanette Rankin, who was elected 4 years before the ratification of the 19th Amendment, and then realized that she wasn't fighting for me. And then that realization that the 19th Amendment, which is supposed to give women the right to vote, is a fallacy, and Asian Americans did not get the right to vote until 1952, Indigenous women 1947, Black women 1965, all these things that I didn't know my own history, and then I started to feel a lot of shame. And then I was like, okay, this is, and especially in the city of Chicago, being in Hamilton during that time, like there was a lot of collaborations that were possible. So I started getting involved with the Women's March, with the United City of Women, with the ACLU. I surrounded myself with folks like Valerie Jarrett and Tina Shen. Like Tina Shen spoke at my goodbye dinner. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And that's when it clicked for me. I was like, oh, this is not. I think the reality is, and I don't know, I don't want to speak for you, but like I think getting into performing, there's so much an ego thing, and you have to. I'm not like shaming ego. It's healthy to have as a politician, as a performer. It's important, but I think there's a turning point of when does the ego take over. And the reality for me was, I think that art is the most powerful tool. I think that art, as you were just saying, never have I ever, right? Like there is and it's not just representation. It's beyond. It's like, what are we saying? What are you doing when you're bringing South Asians in to see Dear Evan Hansen and we're talking about mental health and they go back to their family and talk about mental health for the very first time, potentially. You know what I mean? And so what is beyond this concept? And I always, and it pivoted for me where I was like, I believe that art changes culture and culture changes policy. And I think that melding needs to really, really be a pivotal point and needs to be institutionalized. So much so that I believe it that I'm actually in grad school for public policy. And I don't know what the hell I'm doing with that, but I'm passionate about it. So yeah, speaking of representation, kind of just briefly talking about what does representation mean to you, Nikhil? In the arts or on stage?
Well, I think that the story of me going from Hamilton to Dear Evan Hansen and going from a show that really, I guess, broke boundaries within representation, and it was the decision of when I came back and getting the offer of doing Dear Evan Hansen. Like, should I stay with the show that is super powerful, or should I go and try and trailblaze this one role and see, or is that my purpose? Because I could stay with Hamilton, it's super cushy, it's super wonderful, you can drop the H word anywhere, but
we call it the H-bomb.
The H-bomb, yeah. But I think I had to make a decision, and I think it's what story do you want to tell? And I think that being South Asian and being in a story that's about mental health as well was sort of my ticket of being like, no, this feels right, especially post-pandemic when we all kind of went through there. I was like, no, this is the perfect pairing what I need to do, and having the conversation with my family, the pandemic, that all evolving. It's like, this feels right. And I think that going on stage every single night, as I mentioned in the beginning, the first 6 months, going out on stage and be like, I can't change anything of my costume, but to know that every single night, 2,000, 3,000, however many people were in that audience, would see me roll out on the kitchen table with my white sister and 2 white parents, and to own that, but also I'm there because I know that when I go out there, someone else in the audience is gonna be like, oh, but then it's this balance of like, no, but that's also a family.
Yeah.
You know? And I remember in the rehearsal process, the director, Michael Greif, pulled me over and says, let's talk about this. We got the whole family together, and he was like, so what's the story? And I was like, well, I think I'm adopted at a young age, and I think that then it makes, if you guys know the story, it makes it even, I commit suicide in the story.
Yeah.
So it makes it even more heartbreaking for my mother to fail her son, to fail her son from someone that she pulled from somewhere else, like didn't give him the house. So there was even more layers to all of that. But I think that representation in that way, every single night going out, oh my God, it made every single show electric for just that reason. Just because, and I mean, for just the individual person who could see themselves in me, but then also I know the car conversations post-show of what people will be talking about. That's what I was most excited about. But so that's.
Well, it's interesting. I remember we were rehearsing another show, and one of our good friends came up who is an older queer Black man, probably like 20 years older than us. So a different generation, which is just really interesting to start having these conversations of what does representation mean across generations. And there was a lot of conversation of being like, well, when I come into rehearsal, are we going to talk about this? We need to talk about race. We need to, and obviously, but like, why am I here? And the first piece of advice he said was, don't have them question why they cast you.
Yeah.
Which was really interesting. At least like for me, I was like, what the heck does that mean? Like, what do you mean? Don't but it's interesting to start having these conversations across generations and find, instead of just being like, no, you're wrong, is like finding where's that wisdom in it, because the reality is like, and then 6 months later he had an Asian mom, and then and the race of the casting changed, because unlike TV film, that specificity needs to be ever evolving and needs to be changing.
Yeah.
Like I'm working on this musical right now, and it's about mixed identity with a Filipina and Bangladeshi family, and we were talking about how do we make that sustainable, because are we always going to, ideally it can be everywhere, right? But are we always going to be able to find the Bangladeshi and Filipina perspective? And I'm like, there's so many experiences that are cross-cultural because of just childhood immigrants, and even within this, like I'm Bangladeshi, Nikhil is,
Rajasthani.
Yeah, and Nepali, and so like that is 2 different experiences, but yet there's so much similarity of just like being a first gen American. Anyway, I'm going down a tangent, but I think like having these conversations across generations, I think was really interesting too.
Yeah.
To check myself, because sometimes I get angry. Like the older generation, if I'm gonna be honest. And then I kind of want to open up the conversation, but I just kind of want to end with this. Do you think, Nikhil, that theater is powerful? Does it work?
Can I ask you a question?
Okay, you can ask me.
Do you think the theater is powerful?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of, said it before of like, I do think that art is the missing ticket. I don't think that we've institutionalized that representation of like making sure that we work together as policymakers and as artists. But I think one thing that's really unique about theater is the community that we're building. Like even later today and tonight, like we're going going to be experiencing music together as a community. And there's always like this saying that in theater, like everyone shares a heartbeat. And what does that mean? To like witness something with the people around you. And I think that that's really like, I think that's how, you can't separate yourself from theater. You are invested, you're in it. And that's the way that we change minds. To be able to actually build a community to see what the artists are saying and how we can find ourselves. And the reality is, like, depending on where we are in our lives, we're gonna take something different away. Like, I've seen Dear Evan Hansen so many times, but the latest time I saw it, I went up to Nikhil afterwards. I'm like, Nikhil, I think Dear Evan Hansen's about abolition.
I was like, what? That's just where she was.
That's just where my brain was.
But to go off of that, is that, you know, I think that the most beautiful thing about theater is that when you, as an audience member, as you're watching the show, yes, you're taking in a story, but at the same time, you're in a weird way finding yourself on the stage too. And what characters do you see yourself, and what decisions that they make? Would you be doing the same thing? And then all of a sudden now you're having this conversation of, oh my God, they just did that, would I do that? Oh my God, they, you know, so I think that also, that mirror that you get while watching theater is incredible. I think that sometimes you do get that in TV, but the thing is that it's so, like, that person that is giving the performance is in the same room as you. And I think that when they scream, you can't turn down the volume, you know? You are hearing their guttural scream, and I think that immediacy and also that intimacy that you get with theater, with forming the sort of this dialogue within yourself, of that mirror that you get, I think is unparalleled towards anything. And I think that's what kind of, when people say, like, when people walk out of a theater like, whoa, I'm a little changed, is I think a lot of because of that. The story, yes, but I think it's also the experience of it and that conversation that you have silently with yourself about relating to these stories, these characters. Yeah. Theaters.
Do you, opening it up, do y'all have any questions, like thoughts on this topic of conversation before we get saying? Yeah.
I guess on the topic of, like, do you think theater is powerful? I feel like there's a lot of art forms out there, but do you guys feel like do you feel the need to see the impact that it has day in, day out? Like, do you guys ever wonder, is this making a difference? I ask this because I feel like there's so much art out there today, and it's a lot easier to access than it was even a decade ago. But as a result, for those of us creating art, sometimes it feels like, is anyone seeing this? Is this reaching people? Is it having an impact? I mean, do you guys, like, worry about having that feedback loop day in, day out? What keeps you going, I guess?
It's a good question. I think for me it's like creating the world that we want to see, or making a commentary on the world that we want to see. And I know, this is a little bit tangential, but like, what is the concept of like representation for representation's sake, or are we trying to dismantle? So are we trying to replace, or are we trying to dismantle? And I think that art has the power to be able to actually dismantle. And by that I mean we can actually create a system that looks differently and actually can make the change, but also it's demoralizing. But also it's demoralizing because sometimes I'm like, well, policymakers are the only ones that can do it. But then if we don't work with the policymakers, they're not going to be able to get, excuse my language, like shit passed if the society hasn't changed. And I think that that's artists' responsibilities. But then I get now I'm going on a tangent, but then I get super hierarchical because I get angry at artists who don't put in the work, that are not trying, and they just want to create escapism art. And I'm like, no, every art should be like changing something or changing one language. Then it gets hierarchical. But I don't know. I think it can be the same. Like, are we actually creating the impact just as like we all have a place in which to do the work? And if we're not, I just think we have to be collaborating. If we're like silo only with artists, that's where I think it can die.
And I think that that's also for the South Asian community, is we are sort of we're at the end of it of we need to start building as a community, because as soon as people see us and realizing that we have come together as a community, forming a message, forming different anything, I think that's when we can start pushing the envelope for us as a community. But I think it is about collaboration, it is about coming together, but also working with people that you see have that similar, like, world that they want to have. But I mean, the whole thing is about like, no, just like write what's truthful to you, and the feedback is feedback. But the thing is, what you're going to change or alter what you want to say because it's fitting in the mold today. But no, aren't I trying to work for the mold for tomorrow? Yeah. So why am I trying to then work, like, say what fits in right now? So I think that finding those people, but also no, just like stay on the track of what you need to say. And I think that's what pierces the most, right? So the feedback is great, but also it's something that should just kind of blow through your fingers. You don't need to grasp it. Or at least I don't think so, right?
Yeah.
If we're talking about, feedback of artistry and something like that. Yeah.
Curious how you guys view, you've spoken a lot about like creating art and representation and dismantling here, but also how do you see your role in playing a larger picture on the folks back in South Asia who have not left, and who's a cultural shift there in that dichotomy of existence, right? That we're representative here, but we're also counterculture there. And especially with the roles you guys have played and taken on, like how does that, I guess, fit or resonate, or do you guys think of that?
So I'm the first one of my family who's been born in the US, and I have a lot of family in New York, in the Bronx and Jackson Heights, and growing up, like, my family, outside of my immediate family, had never seen me perform in anything. And it was just kind of like, okay, yeah, they're not gonna, like, whatever. I'm not a doctor. The only thing they've ever talked about is I was Miss California, and that's the only thing that they would ever say. I'd go to a party like, she was Miss California. I was like, I was also in Hamilton, we don't know what that is. Yeah. And anyway, so after the pandemic, my cousins came to a showing of I was talking about Jeanette, and I composed a musical, and was kind of getting some traction. Tony Award-winning actors were a part of it, and they came to it, and they came up to me after. I was so, like, all of the producers, like, investors were coming, and I was the most nervous of my cousins being there. I was like, I don't have to like it. No one of my family had ever seen anything. And they came up to me and were crying. And I wasn't on stage. Like, this was just and like, they don't have, like, they've been here since they were 17, 18, you know what I mean? Like, and this is about American culture. This is about an American from the 1920s who wasn't, all of this stuff, and they came crying. So, granted, of course, they do live in the US, so it's not exactly completely them still being in Bangladesh, but like, it was really interesting to see and hear their reaction and experience, because I thought it was such an American moment, but having that conversation of grappling with whatever we can all this show is about, like, grappling with history and how it's not we didn't learn the truth of history and how it's a fallacy. And so, but that's the same. Okay, great. That's the same thing. Thank you. That's the same. We can start singing. But that's the same thing, no matter where we are. I don't know if that's. You want to add on to that?
I mean, I think I have. I mean, my own thing of. Literally, my cousins from India are here right now in the States, and for them, they're like, so what movie is happening? And it's. For me, I'm very much based within theater, and that's where I want to shape here. And so I guess it is different. I'm trying to kind of also culture them on what's going on here and the change that I want to make here. So it is different. I feel like that is. I would love to continue that and see where that can kind of go, but.
It's interesting, like, even Monsoon Wedding, right? It was in Doha.
Yeah.
And it didn't resonate. It's like it's a different conversation there, but also doesn't resonate with who are the people going, what's the socioeconomic status, that affects it. It's so complicated of, like, what conversations, but that's also in the US, what the socioeconomic statuses affects the conversation of art as well. And the reality is people who do art are privileged. There's some semblance of having to have access to money. You can't create art without being able to have that privilege. So that's why I also take the responsibility very seriously too, and collaborating with community organizations. I know that's a long-winded. Yes, and then we're gonna get to singing.
I mean, I just want to I call on being show room for her. I mean, I speak from the perspective of a classical musician, and right now there's a big move in that world for getting rid of having men wearing tailcoats because it's a symbol of elitism, or just allowing people, or not clapping between movements of a symphony, even simple things like that. Because when I got really into playing viola, and I went and I took my viola with me to Pakistan for the first time, I remember realizing I can't play Bach for a lot of people because they're not going to get it. So that's when I ended up starting doing Bollywood, South Asian music. But I did realize that it is it's an access element of culture, and it's also just the people that are listening to classical music are the ones wearing tuxedos, not the ones that are on walking to and from where they live to where they work, where they will see popular music. And so it's through being a South Asian straight player, it's okay, I have this responsibility of representing my culture, but it's how am I going to get people to know what I'm doing with it? There's something I want to echo.
It's a hopefully quick question.
Oh, yeah.
You mentioned escapism art, and it sounded like you were angry. I think this is escapism art, and I wanted to ask if you could potentially see escapism art also as activism, in that it is centering joy, self-care, it's outside the bounds of capitalism, in that it doesn't have a societal purpose or value, and it is just there for the purpose of being art and existing, and how you view escapism art in your life or in your work.
I'm actually working on it. It's something that I'm trying to not be so negatively passionate about because I've gotten called out a lot on it. I also think escapism art, here really quickly, my passion of it, especially when I started to go to grad school, I was only consuming reality TV, actually, and it was the first time I've ever watched reality TV. Escapism art, but I do think there's a way to do positive escapism art. I'm watching Love is Blind, whatever, and it's horrible. I mean, it's trash.
Yeah.
It's trash, and reality TV, I think, actually has a responsibility to, you can still be trash and have positivity that you're giving, right? I don't think any Disney movie is escapism art. I think there's a story, there's a lesson, there's beauty in it, right? So that's where it's or even I started watching, what is another one? Horrible. Oh, Sunset, Selling Sunset. Oh my God.
I think the majority of society would argue that Disney movies are escapism art because they're made for children and they're animated. We've devalued Disney movies as a society because of that.
But it's talking about family, and
But it
it's
really wasn't.
Yeah. I don't disagree with you, but I think society's devalued in that Disney movies are rarely winning Best Picture, right? At the Oscars, voice actors are rarely winning Best Actor, Actress awards in any of these. State awards show. So we have devalued it as an industry and as a society.
Right. Well, I bet we can then have a different conversation about what are these awards anyway.
And who's
Who's judging?
Yeah. So I'm looking at trash TV as escapism, where I just think there's a responsibility for us to do it better.
But also, as individuals, I'm just not the artist that wants to do it, and that's my purpose, but another person has another purpose. It's not as an artist, I feel I need a balance. Maybe I should do a little bit of that or a little bit. It's no, I was kind of put in this position and whatever to kind of do this. So I feel maybe focus.
Speaking of escapism art,
I'm a Bravo junkie, so I totally get it.
I mean, I'm a walking hypocrite. I'm saying this and then I'm watching. It's horrible. So this song is called "We're Ready." I interviewed Neil. Neil's here, right?
Yep.
Somewhere. Okay, somewhere. These are words that he said. This song that I wrote, I interviewed him, and then I wrote a song based on his words. And it's called "We're Ready," and it's a lot about one of the conversations that we were talking about is how we are teaching the previous generation. Our generation is having conversations, kind of what we were talking about, that they haven't had, and how we can actually work collaboratively. And we're ready to be in places that we haven't seen ourselves before in.
Yeah.
And so we're going to teach it, but we don't have that much time, so let's just do a quick warm up. Should we do that, or you think we should just go to singing? Let's just sing it. Okay.
Y'all are great.
Yeah. He's healthy. Yeah. It's healthy. Yeah.
Just a straight Indian pitch perfect.
Yeah. Okay. We'll teach this first, and then we'll play it.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's get everybody to stand.
We're ready. Oh, 'cause we've always had a place.
I've always had a place.
Because we've always had places to actually place. Yep.
Because there's always been a place.
Oh no, you said the right thing.
Yeah, you were correct. Yeah. Okay. So we're gonna do it again. We're just gonna do it again. Same thing, and you're just gonna hear me, and he's gonna be a little bit quieter.
I don't think we're gonna sound as good.
There's so much background vocals.
A
A lot of background vocals. It's just about singing, and truly, even some of the background vocals are like, "We're ready!" Like you don't even have to sing it. But it'll be very fun. It'll be very fun. Shall I do it again?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Oh, not staying the hell away.
Not staying the hell away.
We're ready.
We're ready. 3, 4.
You ready?
I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready.
What's on? You ready?
I'm ready. Okay.
That sounds great.
Great. Wait, can you do it once without me singing it?
No.
Wait, well, I'm gonna need some more volume.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
we
need
need
some
some
more
volume.
volume.
Are you gonna make us stand up there with you when you perform this?
Yes.
Yes.
It'll be so fun. It'll be so fun. It'll be so
Yeah.
fun.
Your fault.
Chill. This will be great.
Just let me know. Thanks.
Shall we do it? Shall we do it one more time? Let's
Yeah.
do it one more time, 5 times, and I'm gonna just drop out at some point.
Cool.
Yeah, just that first part. Just that first part.
Here we go. 1, 2, 3. You ready?
I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready.
You ready?
I'm ready. Hell away.
1, 2.
Not staying the hell away.
1, 2.
Not staying the hell away.
Okay, and also I'll say,
You ready? I'm ready.
let's go one more time.
Yep.
You ready?
I'm ready.
No, not staying the hell away.
Not staying the hell away.
Let's go. Okay. And then.
So, about 3 weeks ago, hi, I'm Ari, and this is Nikhil. And about 3 weeks ago on Instagram Live, I interviewed Neil, and we had a very beautiful, I would say vulnerable. Would you say it's vulnerable conversation that we had?
I still feel vulnerable.
Wonderful.
And from that conversation, I was inspired to write this song that I am going to invite some incredible folks onto the stage. Can we give it up for amazing community members?
Come on up.
So we had a breakout, our third breakout, and we talked about art and culture, and then we learned this song. And I think y'all are going to be able to sing along with it. Valerie might have mentioned a little bit about it today, too. We're also still a little shaking from that as I'm sobbing trying to sing this happy song right now. And I am honored to be able to share the stage with you and all of you.
Truly.
Are y'all ready?
You ready, Neil? Is everybody ready? This is me doing filler.
Is the track ready?
Is the track ready? All the things that I was never told, all the lies that I was sold, make my pride go up in smoke. Keep my head down and I'll be just fine. Make me feel like I'm a part, but you'll never be in charge. Now I'm treading through the water when there's only one. How can we be seen? And I know just as a daughter, well, I gotta do better than their dreams. You ready? I'm ready. Oh, not staying the hell away. Not staying the hell away. Ready? We're ready. Oh, 'cause there's always been a place.
Come on, give it up for this.
Give it up for this choir! All right, the lyrics are here. I think you're going to be able to catch on. This next chorus, I think y'all can join. You ready?
You're ready. In the moment we changed everything. Finally see me on the screen, and my elders can't believe the generation that is breaking things. 'Cause the moments need to last from 100 years just in the past. And my work is never done when there's only one. How can we be seen? And I know just as a son, well, I gotta do better than their dreams. You ready? I'm ready. No, not staying the hell away. Not staying the hell away. You ready? We're ready. Oh, 'cause there's always been a place. There's always been a place.
If I work a little harder, maybe I'll find something that I've not understood.
'Cause you know, with children getting smart,